Hey everybody, and welcome back to Sweatpants BI. It's me, Sean, here. I'm back from a nice multi-month break from the channel while I focus on the new job that I accepted about 5 or 6 months ago as the Director of Business Intelligence for a company called Centerwell Home Health. So still staying technically within the Humana family, where I've been working for over 5 years now, but just moving to a different area of the company. That has had me extremely busy. I haven't had nearly as much time as I had formerly to sort of focus on my Udemy teaching and on Sweatpants BI here on YouTube. But hey, it's great to be back. One other thing that I wanted to talk about before I dive into the business intelligence videos in this month's BI book club is that we do have a new business intelligence engineer who joined our family very recently. So I'm joined in this video by Phoebe, our new cat that we adopted right at 2 weeks ago, I think, right, Phoebe? So Phoebe will be helping me out with this month's BI book club. And this month, I'm actually going to be reviewing Effective Data Storytelling by Brent Dykes. It's a wonderful book on a topic that I find very, very interesting and kind of informs a lot of the work that I do in business intelligence and data visualization. I wouldn't say that, my role specifically focuses on data visualization and like presenting specific data visuals or insights. Storytelling is really a relatively small but very important part of what I do with designing and building reports in Microsoft Power BI. But it's also a topic that I'm always very, very interested in and like to do more of when I can. So this is a wonderful book and a very interesting topic that I'm going to be talking about for this month's BI book club. And so I'm going to go ahead and put Phoebe down and let's go ahead and get into it. She doesn't want to let go of my shirt, so maybe she's going to stick around with me. So for those of you who have never heard of the author, Mr. Brent Dykes is a consultant and all-around data visualization and data storytelling expert who's consulted with, frankly, some of the biggest companies in the world, companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Nike. And he's also got a really incredible LinkedIn page and some other social media platforms where he routinely posts, really excellent content sort of focused around data storytelling in particular. So if you're interested in this topic and if you're looking for an expert or a professional to sort of follow to learn more and sort of, keep your fingers on the pulse of what's happening and what's evolving, within the domain of data storytelling, highly recommend that you check Brent Dykes out. One of the things about effective data storytelling that I've discussed with some of my friends and colleagues that I like is as someone who, over the past several years has read a fair number of books on data visualization and storytelling and dashboard design and, all of these fun topics that I sort of work with day in, day out in business intelligence and data visualization, is that I like that this book sort of flips the script on what I've come to expect from the format or, sort of structure of a lot of these books. A lot of books, they sort of spend the first several chapters, if not most of the book, sort of focused on the tools that data visualization and data storytelling practitioners use. Maybe they go really deep into some specific data visualizations like bar charts, line charts, pie charts, sort of, so that which data visuals to use in different contexts. They might go into, specific aspects of design like Gestalt design theory, which I've, talked about quite a bit here on this channel and in some of my classes. And they might also identify some specific data visuals from throughout history. I feel like almost any data visualization book worth its salt has the big three. That's Jon Snow's cholera map, Charles Menard's Napoleon's March visual, and some of the rose chart designs by Florence Nightingale. You can pretty much open any book, this one included, and you're going to see the Napoleon's March visual. I think if I scroll back, just a couple of pages, I'll probably see the Jon Snow visual somewhere. Might actually be buried just a little bit more, or maybe it's the next page. I guarantee that it's always near Napoleon's March. Yep, there's the cholera map. So, obviously this book gets that stamp of approval, if nothing else, for at least having the three charts from throughout history that every data visualization book has ad nauseum. But that said, what I really like about the the Dykes book is that it touches on some of those same topics, but it's also one of the few books that I've read that sort of makes data storytelling the real star of the show. And some of the other topics that tend to dominate a lot of the other data visualization and storytelling books that are out there, those sort of only are offered supporting roles or cameos in Dykes' book. He makes it, just looking at the title, Effective Data Storytelling, he makes it very clear that this book is focused on just the storytelling aspects of working with and visualizing data. So if you're really interested in deep diving into like specific data visuals, or if you want to familiarize yourself with some of the more obscure data visuals that are out there, on the bookshelf behind me, I have the wonderful Better Data Visualizations book by Jonathan Schwabish, which I highly recommend if you just want to familiarize yourself with dozens upon dozens of really useful data visuals for different scenarios. That book's got you covered. If you're really interested in sort of the visual craft of storytelling and designing really impactful data visuals and getting into the sort of specifics of how to format your data visuals and sort of how to color them and what to highlight, Cole Nussbaumer-Knopflich's book Storytelling with Data is a wonderful read and still probably my reigning favorite book. Dykes' book focuses less on the visual elements and more on the elements that just make a data story really impactful. So that is what makes a data story memorable, what motivates the audience for your story to sort of drive change, and what are the attributes of a data story that compel your audience to remember key points days, weeks, months, maybe even years down the road. As someone who's worked in business intelligence and data viz for about a decade myself, I can definitely empathize with some of the points that Dykes makes around viewers of a data visual and dashboard not always approaching the data from a strictly logical or rational perspective. I've sat in boardrooms and I've observed all kinds of instances of executives talking in circles around data visuals that I mistakenly believed were painfully obvious. Maybe, one particular person is underperforming. Maybe there's a product that's just a piece of crap and the customers hate it. Or maybe we're just having specific problems in a business area that need to be addressed. And when you put a bunch of people in a room with data, frankly, it's almost impossible to know, which way the conversation's going to go, which aspects of a insider data visual people are really going to focus on. Sometimes it can be things that I think are really trivial, but it'll dominate like 45 minutes to an hour of discussion, and everyone's got a different opinion and everybody wants to pull on different strings. And I'm like, I really don't think that this is all that important, but I guess we're going to sit here for the entire meeting talking about it. Which is why one of the most appealing aspects of this book is that it digs deep into sort of the psychology of communication and dispels right away this myth that business decisions are based just on logic and reason alone. Given different contexts, a new insider data point can manifest wildly different emotions in your audience. And Dykes positions his book not just to help you think of the best data visual to communicate an insight, but also provides you with the tools that you're going to need to navigate the unpredictable and very diverse emotional reactions that any insight or data point that you're presenting is likely to elicit, especially if it's a brand new data point that someone's never seen, or if that insight that you're presenting sort of challenges the status quo. So he's interested in untangling the very complex sort of neural mechanisms that we all have that determine how we process brand new information. What we choose to remember and what we deem important enough to take action on. Basically, Dykes wants to wrestle with why there are so many situations where people reach really different and even conflicting conclusions when presented with the exact same information. And he wants to give you the tools that you need to sort of navigate that ambiguity, or sort of, take all of this confusion and sort of, narrow everyone's attention onto the things that really, really matter, and sort of help them understand sort of the root of the problem, or the root of the insight, or the, maybe the root of some argument that a specific action needs to be taken. I had to hit pause for a moment because Phoebe wanted to be on my shoulder again. But, something else that I really, really appreciate about effective data storytelling is how much time is sort of dedicated to digging into the fundamental aspects of data storytelling, because there's a really important distinction to sort of make between traditional storytelling and narrative structures that you might see in film and literature, and what storytelling and story structure sort of means within the context of data. So if you take a classic example of literary storytelling, something like Lord of the Rings, most stories sort of start by establishing, this new world, and maybe there's like a reluctant hero, there's some kind of villain who's, trying to start some crap, and then there's a long period of escalating tension. So at some point, the hero is going to sort of, doubt himself or herself, and, sort of do some soul searching on their way to eventually, decide that they are up to this challenge. Eventually, they've got to sort of, have some inevitable showdown with the bad guy. And then, of course, the story reaches some kind of resolution. Eventually Sauron is defeated. Frodo, or technically Gollum, for you nerds out there, drops the ring into the volcano, and evil is vanquished, and everyone lives happily ever after. But data stories aren't so quite so cut and dry. The resolution of a data story, usually is decided, sometime down the road, with whether or not an action that was taken on the other side of a data story actually addressed or solved the problem that it was intended to solve, whether or not the action that was taken was the correct action, or maybe something corrective is needed down the road. And of course, people that read books, film-going audiences, they have their own agenda, when they are consuming a story that's very, very different from boardroom executives or decision makers who you're trying to persuade for or against, some particular action. So the 6 essential elements to a data story that Dykes lays out are very, very useful as a framework, whether or not you're building a presentation deck for your CEO or building a new dashboard for some sales leaders. A few of my favorite quotes from the book focus on just the overall power that stories wield over us, and are as follows. First, one of the earliest points that Dykes makes is that humans are storytelling creatures by nature. And our affinity for storytelling and its centrality within our various respective cultures dates back centuries. Dykes reminds us that as human beings, our brains are inescapably hardwired for stories, and even makes the bold assertion that storytelling has proven to be a powerful delivery mechanism for sharing insights and ideas in a way that is often more memorable and persuasive than just pure facts. And he even extends this notion to the concept that the real conflict within data storytelling is our ability to use data visualization and story to replace whatever prevailing narrative that everyone in our audience may have with a new narrative that's based on the new information or data that we're trying to communicate. So really, the central conflict of data storytelling is trying to present a more compelling story than the innate story and biases that executives or people who have worked within a business for a long time are just bound to have. In other words, if we want to craft really compelling data visuals and communicate insights that are truly going to drive action, instead of just argument, we have to understand and anticipate the story our users or viewers already believe, and figure out what that secret sauce of logic and emotion and visualization narrative is that will replace that story, or at the very least integrate the new information with the old information in order to actually compel those people to get up and do something based on what we're telling them. So other books that I've reviewed on this channel, they might touch on data storytelling, but really they just kind of do it at a very surface level. Data storytelling as a topic in a lot of data visualization books goes about as deep as like a single paragraph or maybe a page. And for my money, Dykes' book is the best book on pure storytelling within the world of data that I've read. Because Dykes, not only tells us, more about what data storytelling is, he also introduces a lot of his own very useful frameworks and guides that I find to be extremely helpful as just references when I'm building out new Power BI reports, or maybe putting together some presentations with data visual elements. Some parts of the book, just like with any book, can be a little bit long-winded, and I feel like this is kind of inevitable and understandable when you have an author who is one of the leading, authorities sort of on the topic, and all of that passion and knowledge can tend to, sort of come across as a little bit long-winded to someone who is approaching it from maybe more of a layman perspective like myself or maybe yourself. So it's not to diminish the book at all. It's just to, admit that, yeah, there were some parts in the book that I maybe struggled a little bit to get through, maybe some parts that were a little bit dry. But all of that, I think, just really speaks to, Brent Dykes' just real passion for the topic. And overall, despite the fact that there might have been some, dry areas to the book, it's amazing how much he covers in a relatively, small book. So there's a lot of really, really great content here that I would highlight. I mean, overall, the dry parts notwithstanding, I feel like even a fairly average reader like myself can, usually conquer this book in just a week or two. If you're a super fast reader, a book like this can probably be knocked out in just a couple of days. But if you're looking for your next great data viz or data storytelling read, I do highly recommend that you check out the book. It can be picked up for relatively cheap on Amazon. And if you decide to just throw it on your wish list and wait for a sale, I understand that as well. And I'd also encourage you to start benefiting from Brent Dykes' expertise right away by checking out his blog at effectivedatastorytelling.com. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, maybe give him a check on Twitter or LinkedIn or YouTube. You might think, based on these plugs, once again, that Brent and I know each other. We don't. Brent definitely does not know that I exist. But that said, a lot of his content is really great. He does post very routinely. I feel like I'm seeing awesome stuff that he's made. And that he talks about on a very regular basis. She does not want to let me go. I keep thinking she wants down, but she's just adjusting her grip on my shirt. But anyway, everyone, this has been Sean and Phoebe for Sweatpants BI. Hope you enjoyed this month's BI Book Club. If you enjoyed this video and some of the others on my channel, I hope you'll give it a like or maybe even subscribe to Sweatpants BI. No pressure. As always, it's been a pleasure, and I'll see you next time. Probably not with Phoebe on my shoulder because I feel like she's tearing my shirt to shreds. But thanks, everybody, and hope you have a wonderful week.